care, lead, innovate, motivate, balance. These 5 tenets reveal ways of creating a more profitable and customer-centric pharmacy. What will you discover when you climb with RMS?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Climb. I'm Brad Jones, the founder and CEO here at Retail Management Solutions, and as always, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this month's Climb episode. With me today, as always, Brandon Bolesky, our Director of Operations. Good morning, Brandon.
Good morning, Brad.
How are you today?
Pretty good. How about you?
Tell you what, I'm a little bit tired. We went all 3 of the major drug wholesalers last month. I just got back yesterday from actually, I'll tell you what, folks, you got to be going to this conference. I just got back from Diversify RX's. Lisa Foss is the leader here, her Pharmacy Profit Summit. And quite frankly, this is where the movers and shakers of pharmacy are going these days. We have a ton of people. I had a great time. I actually did a presentation on what I call fun with the front end, which I think I'm going to do on Climb here within the next couple of months. Going to move some things around to get me on there. It was really fun to do. People were really engaged. I thought, but great show. I think the size of the number of people will probably double from last year. So it was a terrific show. And folks, what this is all about, if you don't know anything about it, it's really all about the same types of things we're doing here at Climb. It's helping you improve your bottom line, improve patient outcomes with all the things that leading pharmacists are doing now, in this charge to make more money and to figure out how to keep independent pharmacy profitable and healthy. So take a look at Diversify RX's Pharmacy Profit Summit. Okay, wow, that was an unpaid advertisement. But it was a great time, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to speak there. So let's just get rolling right along. Everybody knows what Climb stands for: care, lead, innovate, motivate, and balance. Today, we actually just have one presentation, but it's a great one. I know it's going to be a great one because I know the person really well. But without further ado, Brandon, tell us a little bit about last couple months.
Absolutely. So last month we aired a Best of Climb broadcast featuring some of our most watched segments over the past year. Definitely a great highlight reel. Check it out if you missed it. Also, if you missed our June broadcast, now the trade show season is over. It's a great time to go back and watch that one as well. It included a deep dive on credit card processing, as well as a discussion on industry trends with Todd Uri from the Pharmacy Podcast Network. So today, after Climb, Brad discusses a new feature in our purchase order program called Any Vendor. But before we get to that, back over to Brad to talk about what we'll be seeing first.
Yeah, in here in just a second, I'm going to bring on one of my favorite people. Been working with Mona Ghattas at Duran Central Pharmacy, I think for 17 years, something like that. And she's a second-generation pharmacist and owner of the pharmacy that she purchased from her dad, multi-award winner. They're doing things differently. Here's a independent pharmacy in a big city, Albuquerque, New Mexico, and they made themselves a destination. And along with doing that, they've created a tremendous amount of excitement for that front end, increased their pharmacy business as a result of the front end. It's a great story. And Mona and I I'm going to bring her on in just a sec, and we're going to just have a nice discussion about all the things that she's done. And actually, I showed her pictures of her store in my presentation at the Pharmacy Profit Center here a couple days ago. So I'm excited to have Mona on with us. And without further ado, we're going to show a splash screen with Mona's picture, and then I'm going to bring her on, and we'll get started with our conversation. Good morning, Mona. Welcome to Climb. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, good morning. Thank you for having me.
So, I'm excited I was in your store, about 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, some of my time flies. And I'm excited to talk a lot about the things that we talked about and I learned and you learned while I was there. I'm going to start. I'm going to kind of follow a presentation I just did. I just got back from Lisa Faust's Pharmacy Profit Summit in Dallas, and I'll tell you what, for those that want to learn how to improve the profitability and just overall vibe in your pharmacy and just make it a place to come, a destination. I think people need to add this the Pharmacy Profit Summit to the list of conferences they attend. I was really impressed. It's the second year, and we were there last year, but this year I actually presented. And my presentation this year, I entitled it "Fun with the Front End." And so I'm going to take us kind of down that path today, kind of just follow along the kind of what my presentation was, because I think the front end is a lot of fun. And as you know, I actually showed some pictures of your pharmacy as part of my presentation. We're going to do that in a couple different places here today. We'll show some pictures as well. Why did I call Fun with the Front End? Because it's the place. I mean, the front end of your business is where you control the products and services. You control the appearance. You control the merchandising, the pricing. You have complete control over the image that you're trying to create for your pharmacy. And I think you've done a tremendous job of that. So let's talk a little bit about that image and what you're doing, at Duran Central.
Sure. What would you like to know?
Well, I think where we can start is I think that's, for a lot of people, that's they go and they become a pharmacist, they open a store, and they don't really have a firm idea of what it is the image that they're trying to create. And I don't think there's a one size fits all. We have, pharmacies I visit are apothecary. I've been at hundreds of pharmacies across the United States, and I'm sure you probably have too over the years. But some are apothecary, and they're very clinical, and they have a very small front end, and they're carrying 100 SKUs. Okay, so an image they want to create, I think, is different than an image with a pharmacy that has a very large front end. But also, what are you trying to do? Because I think in that case, there's two sides of the business. So, what are you trying to accomplish? What are your goals? And so, to me, that image could be very clinical. It could be, I think it always has to be very professional. But, is there an area of focus? Are you focusing in certain areas? And then making sure that when you're focusing in those areas, that what people see when they walk into your building doesn't disconnect from what those areas you're trying to focus, I guess was what I'm suggesting. So.
Right. So, we're a full service pharmacy. And so I really want to highlight everything, but I think it's really important when you walk into a business that you want to stay in there, right? You don't want to, oh, I'm just going to pick up my prescriptions and bolt out of there. It needs to be a welcoming atmosphere. It needs to be clean. It needs to be organized. I think music is important. And it doesn't, not the top 40 and, or some sort of blaring country and Western or something. It's got to be a pleasant atmosphere where people want to linger. At least in my pharmacy, I want people to linger. I want them to look around. I want them to ask questions. I want everything to be interesting. We are a destination in my city. We just won an award for that. I want people to linger by, ask questions. I want them to be inquisitive about their health as well. So it's not just the front end per se, but I want to have interesting, healthy choices that they can find in my pharmacy.
Okay. Well, that leads me, so in my presentation, I talked about two things, visual merchandising, and then I also talked about how visual merchandising impacts the neuroscience behind how people shop. And when I talk about the neuroscience, and this is really the study of what causes people's behaviors, when it comes to shopping, it turns out people are absolutely not rational shoppers. And one of the studies that I found the most interesting was that unconscious thought drives up to 80% of consumer purchase behavior. So when people come in to your pharmacy, they don't even know why they're attracted to things, but their subconscious mind is going, this is very appealing to me. And that's where the visual merchandising comes in. And I really like your comment about the music, because really what you're trying to create is an ambiance. And that sounds really weird for a pharmacy, right? I mean, it sounds like, yeah, if I'm going to eat at a restaurant, ambiance is important. But it really turns out that it's important, period, in shopping. So I want to show at this point, I just want to show a couple of pictures of the front end of your pharmacy, where you've done, so you don't have much in the way of aisles. There's really not aisles. It's
No.
and it's it's got a boutique feel to it, and so these pictures show that. So we're gonna just very quickly here. I'm putting pictures up on the screen now, and you can see this is a beautiful display. This is also really nicely displayed. And again, in this one, you're not seeing any aisles, right? You're just seeing beautiful displays that really show off the product. And one of the things that neuroscience is also showing is that when you do things like this and you display things on wood shelving and wood units, people believe automatically, they think that it's a higher quality product that can drive more revenue, that they're willing to pay more for. And doesn't even have to be true. It's just how you display. So that was one of the things that really struck me when I came to your store. Now, I think when I go into the average pharmacy, they've got normal aisles and metal shelving. So, if I'm the people that are listening to this and this at the presentation, I said, yeah, I'm not suggesting you have to do a complete remodel of your store on day one. Okay. If you have aisles and shelves, you don't have to do that. And I'm guessing, well, I'm not guessing because I know from conversations we had at dinner and while I was in your store, this didn't happen overnight at
No.
Duran Central either.
No, we had metal shelving when I first took over, and we had aisles, and they're very heavy metal shelving, I might add, and the kind that sticks to the floor of your pharmacy when you try to move it. And so little by little, I started changing that out because I wanted to set myself apart from Walgreens and Walmart and CVS because I'm in a fairly large city. So I needed to set myself apart. So we did. We started thinking about it, and almost all of my fixtures now are a light oak looking wood fixture, and all of them have wheels. And we reset our store continually. We move things around because I have found, I've studied a lot about the neuroscience of things. And when you move things, even if you just move them 3 feet, you get a whole nother look, and people will walk up to you and say, oh, wow, I didn't know you carried shaving products. Well, we've been carrying shaving products for 10 years. And I just moved it 2 feet and they noticed it. So those are things that, we do. We change up our displays all the time. They do it in the grocery store. You go to the grocery store and you're looking for something and it's not in that aisle anymore. They want you to walk past other aisles, hoping that you'll pick up things. And I kind of do the same thing.
Yeah, and I learned this a long time ago too, that when I was younger and working in my parents' pharmacy, you could have something that isn't selling at all in one location and just move it to another location, like you just said, 2 feet away or just in another part of the store, and suddenly it's selling like hotcakes. So it's very fascinating, but the reset is so important. And um, and it also keeps, as you said, it keeps things interesting because people have especially when there's aisles, people have a pattern of how they walk aisles. And so there are aisles that people just simply don't walk. And usually it's on the exterior aisles, right?
Right.
If the entrance pushes them to the middle, they stay in the middle. And so moving things around is important. And I think the boutique approach in the pharmacies I'm seeing that are the most successful with their front ends, they're using more of a boutique approach to set themselves apart. So um, there's when a person is thinking about all of this and going, I'm overwhelmed. What am it sounds like I have to completely change my pharmacy. And even though you say you did it in small steps, there are some things though that I do notice in pharmacies that they can do without really costing them anything. And the number one thing that I see that really is unfortunate is it's not clean. And it's not just isn't it clean, it's also cluttered. It doesn't look professional. And then also another thing you see a lot is bare shelves. Uh, and so see one of this, one of that, one of this, one of that, and these are things that you can control.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For instance, and that was one of the problems we had with those big metal fixtures. They were really deep, and I didn't need 10 bottles of Tylenol on my shelf because I wasn't selling. It would
Right,
expire,
right,
So I realized that I needed to have a shorter depth in my shelves. That way I could put two things on there and it still would look full. So that's something I did in the sort of the OTC section, pharmaceutical type things.
hmm
And then in other areas of the store, I felt like, oh, I really need to impact this. I need to show people I believe in this perfume, let's say, or this body lotion. So instead of buying two, we buy 12 or 24 and we make a big giant display. And I found that impacting certain items makes a huge difference. People are like, wow, this must be great.
right,
They're healthy on this one. But cleanliness, hands down, it has to be clean. It has to be fronted, has to be organized, make a little bit of sense. Otherwise, if it's cluttered and dirty, people just don't want to shop. So
right.
important.
Well, and the cluttered and dirty says something else too. So, if you go into a business that's cluttered and dirty and they're offering you vaccinations, I mean, to me, I would be going, maybe
Right.
not, right? I don't think I'm too interested in vaccinations here, where the place is filthy. So I think that's another part of that whole image thing, right? That it plays into your entire business. And I think that's what the front end can do for you is it sets this image that then can be projected. The person will just subconsciously project onto your entire business, the back end as well. So one of the things that I talked about in that presentation when I mentioned visual merchandising, and I just want to, this is a quote, visual merchandising helps create customer value by making the shopper journey efficient, unique, and memorable. And that's what people are drawn to. And that's what you mentioned. You're in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That's a relatively large city, and you're a destination. And so, let's talk a little bit about how you created that destination, and it didn't happen overnight, I imagine.
No, I put a lot of thought. I know we needed to brand ourselves. So we worked with a branding company. We really worked hard to change our image instead of being a tired kind of rundown looking pharmacy, we needed to up our game a little bit. So we got a branding agency. They helped us with the brand. We changed our sign. We started changing our fixtures. We redid our website. Well, actually, when I first took over, we didn't have a website, but we got a website, and we've since restructured it. We were continually changing. And we do it all the time. We have walkthroughs through the pharmacy, thinking about, well, maybe this needs to be moved. Maybe the expensive things need to be front and center instead of down on the bottom shelf. So many times people put expensive products on the bottom just because they're big, which doesn't make sense. I want expensive things staring them right in the face.
Right.
Yeah. There's perceived value. I don't want to be a dollar store. I can't compete with the dollar store, and I have no interest in that. But there are certain items that if you mark them too low, there's a perceived value, and you need to up your game, up your prices a little bit. I think pharmacists are very scared about raising their prices, very scared. And I sell $3 chocolates, and I can't keep them in stock. And they're little, little truffles. But I've got them front and center. I've got them in a really nice lighted case. It's clean. It's full. And I turn that all day long.
And I had a couple of those while I was there.
Resist, right?
That's for sure.
Resist.
Well, and it's, and it's so smart. It's right there at the checkout counter, right? So it's not, you can't miss it. There's no way to get out of the store if you're buying anything without seeing those things. And yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of times people have perceptions, in the pharmacy particular. Oh, well, I'm in a very low income area and they would never buy those chocolates. That's ridiculous. Well, that's wrong. And you should never make those assumptions about anybody, because everybody's got priorities, right? And you just need to educate people about products, and you need to show them, have products there. It's up to them if they're going to buy it or not. It's not, you can't just decide, oh, they're not going to buy those, they're too expensive. Well, no, everybody likes to treat themselves occasionally, and they will.
Sure.
I'm in a low income area as well. So, I think that's important.
Boy, there are like 10 things now that I want to talk about, and I'm probably not going to remember them all. So I'm going to come back to the website at some point here in a little bit. But the one of the things that I noticed in your pharmacy, excuse me, in the prescription department at the pickup counter, was that you right there you have a high-end line of vitamins and supplements. And this is, there's a number of points here that I wanted to talk about, because we've talked in many of these Climb events, we've talked about lots of different clinical services, but we've spent a lot of time talking about drug-induced nutrient depletion and the recommendations for that. And there's, I think, for success to happen, you have to have a high-end product, because some of this stuff just doesn't actually work. So if you're selling the low-end product, it's, you're hurting your credibility. But the thing I hear from so many people that you just addressed is, well, I'm in a low-income area, and they'll never buy this higher-end product. But again, you're making an assumption that you really shouldn't make. And I also, well, I'm going to let you comment, and then rather than me just talking here, I'll let you comment on that.
Well, yeah, we also do drug-induced, nutrient depletion, all of that stuff. Everybody's heard about that. We've talked till we're blue in the face about that. But I think it's very interesting it's about educating your patient. Education. Hey, did you know? And it doesn't have to be a hard sell, but you start educating them, and then they start thinking about it. And I've had people come back and thank me for putting them on CoQ10, because they're on cholesterol medicine and they can barely walk. you can't assume that people aren't going to buy it. If you educate, they will buy it. I've got plenty of people that buy high-end supplements that are low income people, but apparently their priorities are their health, or at least at the moment, maybe they're hurting enough that they would rather spend their money on some high-end supplements, maybe rather than, junk food. I don't know.
Sure.
But we just can't make those assumptions. I think it's very important.
And, that's what we've seen from the ones that are successful with that kind of a program. But the thing, one of the, and I love that, don't make that assumption. And the other is, I really like how you did it. You display it right there. So when they're picking up their prescription, you can discuss it and it's right in front of them as well. And I think that's part of that whole, when you are looking at what your goals are, when you're trying to create your image, there has to be a connect, between what you're saying and what you're doing and the image you're creating. So to me, that's a picture that really resonated with me because it's right there.
Right. For instance, Brad, I put all of the stuff I believe in, I put it front and center, because then I can, I said, well, that's why I've got it right here, because I think it's very important and I want people to see it. The other thing is I've got a branded extracts and supplements that I put my name on it. And I've got, I don't know how many, 8 feet of that product. And I always tell them, I don't put my name on anything that I don't believe in. And my name is on this. I believe in this product. And so that is also very important.
Well, and, and there's a great example of using, people already feel the pharmacists are the most trusted profession there is. So now you're able to take that trust and put your name on something and say, hey, yeah, absolutely. That's amazing marketing and great thinking, and you're you have credibility, so you can do it and people listen. So that's terrific. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was OTC and HBA items. So I'm not going to hammer. I'm not hammering, and it's no intention for me to hammer on the drug wholesalers, the big three, or any drug wholesaler. But they definitely want you. They're going to give you planograms, and they want you to buy their products and services and display them. But the reality is, and this is a question I ask, and it's really fascinating when I ask this question to pharmacists or to pharmacy owners. Who's your biggest competitor? Now, there isn't one necessarily right answer, but the one that I never hear, which shocks me, is the grocery store. And I'm like, wait a minute. Most likely, the grocery store is your biggest, for your front end, your biggest competitor, because if you have OTC HBA items, because like for me, I'm not on any meds. I shop to the grocery store once a week. Guess where I buy my shampoo or my Crest or my deodorant? At the grocery store, or my Tylenol, not at a drugstore, because I don't ever have a reason to go to the drugstore unless there's unless it's a destination for me. There's nothing drawing me in there, and I shop convenience-wise, and I don't even care about the price. I'm not price sensitive. It's more about convenience. So what did you do? I'm assuming when you took over and you had all the metal shelves, you were carrying a much bigger supply of OTC HBA than you do today. So how did you decide what to do there?
Well, for one thing, I knew people weren't coming to me to buy shampoo, things like that. I mean, either you're going to Costco or you're going to the grocery store, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the dollar store, but a lot of people go to Target and Costco to buy those types of items. You've got a wide variety of choice. And I started doing my numbers. I started looking, and I realized that, wow, I sell, 1 bottle of shampoo a month. people weren't coming to me to buy shampoo. They might come in to get a prescription and say, oh, I need some shampoo. Let me just grab something. Or, oh, I need some Tylenol. I'll just grab it, because I'm here. Convenience, just like the grocery store.
And one comment on that before you continue. That's why you can raise the price. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
All of you, I know all the pharmacists are probably with one of the big three, right? Well, if you do a little diving into that, they have planograms or whatever, and you can set your prices, I don't know, 3 or 4 different increments of
right.
pricing. I always tell them I want the highest, whatever it is, the resort pricing. You give me that pricing because they're not coming in. They're just, it's convenience. It's convenience, all of those types of items. They're coming in to get their prescriptions, picking something up, convenience, or they're seeing something interesting. And that's where I want to capture. I want my front end to be interesting. I don't want to carry every line of Crest and Colgate and all of that. I carry Marvis toothpaste, something different. And I sell a lot of it now. People like it. It's something different. It's a little bit costlier, but they're not going to find it in Costco, and they're not going to find it at the grocery store, and they're not going to find it at Target. So I started doing my numbers, and I started realizing, oh, I do not need, I don't know how many feet. I had a lot of feet of my wholesalers' items, and I had a lot of holes because they don't always have it. And I got rid of the planogram business because that was not helping me, and it was just messing up my shelves all the time. And now I'm down to, I don't know, I might have 12 feet of my wholesaler OTC items. And the rest of it, I've got other items that have a much better profit margin, and I sell a lot more of.
Yeah. And the thing that is important there is that you were looking at numbers, right? And we're going to get to that in just a moment. And yeah, because probably have to wrap this up here in a little bit too, but can't keep you all day, and I could talk about this forever, but the numbers are so important, and we will get to those in a moment. So many people are making decisions that aren't based on numbers, and the whole planogram program with the wholesalers, I'm almost always see pharmacies who just have too much OTC, too much HBA, and they're not looking at the numbers. So we're going to delve into that in just a moment. Before we move on to the numbers, I wanted to talk a little bit, just briefly. You mentioned earlier, at the very, very beginning, you mentioned how it's important that when a person comes in, they feel a warm, welcoming environment. And, I referred to that in my presentation as part of the ambiance. The ambiance is certainly how the exterior of the building looks, how the parking lot looks, how the interior of the building looks, how it's merchandised, all of these things, so it's clean or cluttered, and all those things play a factor. But then, but also when they come in, how is your staff treating them? How, what's that? How does your staff look? What's their appearance? Are they professional? Do they're wearing a shirt with their name on it, or at least a badge, name badge, a smock? What are they doing? What does your pharmacy staff look like? Those are all part of it. The music's part of it. But the most important part of it is how they're treated. And we all know it can get very chaotic behind the counter. So the goal is, of course, not to have that chaos come out to the customer. So do you do, well, I'm putting you on the spot on this one, but do you do store meetings, and do you do some training on this?
Yes, we do regular store meetings. We also do departmental meetings, manager meetings. Sometimes I think we do too many meetings, but yeah, in everybody's position statement, it says the customer has to be greeted when they enter the premises. And so we really concentrate hard that the minute that door opens, hi, welcome to Duran's. How are you today? That kind of thing. And we try to do that very consistently.
And I definitely noticed that while I was there. So yeah, I think that, that warm welcoming thing is so important, and I think it gets lost a lot of the times when I walk into a pharmacy and it's so chaotic in the back, behind the counter with just everything that's happening, and that it gets lost on the staff. They're so focused on that they don't focus on on making it a pleasant experience, and that really again ties into this whole subconscious thing that's happening. I mean, people consciously are going to know they weren't treated properly, but there's a subconscious thing that's happening because they're hearing what's going on, right?
Right.
I mean,
You know, we even have a greeter for part of the day, and that's all they do. They
gotcha.
stand right by the door and they greet everybody that comes in. And we try really hard to learn people's names and get to know
Sure.
them and talk
Yeah.
about
And that's
things.
one of the advantages of community pharmacy, right? Is you
Yeah,
get to do that.
right.
So, okay. I'm going to move on for just a second. We're going to show your website. Now, I know you said you're going to be redoing the website.
We
I'm
do
really,
a lot of things all day.
I want to focus on just one thing though. So on your website, you have what I really thought was great marketing. You do MedSync, but you don't call it MedSync.
Right.
On on your website, you call it what was it? You
One
call it
trip there.
the one trip care pack. And I thought that was really great. And it just really shows, to me, it shows here on our website, we have these different things. You talk about the one trip care pack. You talk about your wellness program. You talk about a nutraceutical program. And then you list all of your clinical services, but it's right. I think the important part here is right there on the main on the main screen, along with your store hours, your number, easy to contact. And I think that for me was the thing I want to drive home for people. So many people don't. There's still a lot of pharmacies that don't have a website, or if they do, it is so basic that it doesn't give them anybody any information, and it doesn't really bode well. Doesn't speak well for your pharmacy, because it doesn't give a good impression. To me, yours gave a very good, solid impression, but I really like that it also stays right in line with what the image you're trying to create for your pharmacy. So what are some of the changes that you think you're going to be making?
Well, we just recently put a button on our website to make an appointment,
Okay.
a pharmacy appointment. And when you click on it, it gives you a variety of things that you can make an appointment for, and mostly vaccines, point of care testing, all of those kinds of things. And we were really thrilled because the other day somebody went in there and made an appointment for their hemoglobin A1C to have a consult with the pharmacy. And another person made a vitamin consult. And I think they were going to make a vaccine appointment, and then they saw all these other services that we did, and they were intrigued and decided, wow, I think I'm going to do this. And they made appointments. And so we picked up some revenue just by having it there front and center. So I'm pretty excited about that piece.
Yeah, that's terrific. And again, that shows the importance of having that presence. And then suddenly you're doing things that you weren't able to do before, and that you're drawing people in that weren't there before. So and I think one of the things that one of the other things I talked about, and just very briefly in this, was what I think is probably, when it comes to talking about marketing, the truer words could not be spoken in the comment was, it's not the media, it's the message that creates a successful marketing campaign. And so no matter what you're doing, print or TV, radio, or social media, or your website, whatever, it's really the message, and it has to be cohesive with what they're seeing in the big in the brick and mortar. And that's one of the things that you're doing really well. But again, I see so many that are not doing those kinds of things, and I think that's a great example of one of the things that can come from having a solid website. Um, there was I also, from your website, I went to your Facebook page, and there's tons of fun photos in there. And I go to so many people's social media sites, and there's nothing there, or the last post was 3 years ago. So I'm just going to say to people, if you're going to have the site, use the site. Otherwise, don't have the site, because it does not bode well for you for somebody to go to your Facebook page and see that the last post was in 2018.
Right. And it's social. Remember, it's social
Right.
media. They're
Right.
not going there to read a bunch of words about nutraceuticals. They want to see somebody, in a mask, taking their vitamins, or, something silly and fun.
Right. And that's a great point. Is it's really, you're not trying to sell here. You're trying to entertain on social media. And the businesses that are successful with it are entertaining with it. And whether that's video, whether that's pictures, but it's so much more than words. And that's, I think, especially a lot of you have young people on your staff. You may not. I know if I talk to my dad about talk to me about social media, I don't do it. It's not my thing. But when you have young people who are doing it all the time, they're a great resource to give you ideas and tell and even ask them to do it for you. So I think that's that's a great resource potentially for a pharmacy. Okay, we've got to get to some numbers real quick. Because these are so important, and all of the things that you've done over the course of the last however many years, and you're continuing to do it. I mean, I know you told me you made a change when we talked on the phone the other day. You told me, well, we already made a change from what you saw. We got rid of, well, you tell everybody what you did, what you got rid of, or what you've changed, and then we'll talk about the numbers.
Okay. Well, I focus on what I call real estate. So when I see all that inventory on the shelves, I see dollar signs. I don't see merchandise, I see dollar signs. And so I'm continually doing numbers. I look at my numbers every day. They're emailed to me. I look down to the very penny what I've sold and what areas I've sold higher in or less in. And I started looking and crunching them, and we had a whole space that we used for hosiery and compression fitting. And we do it by appointment, and we fit them with compression hosiery. It's, high priced items, but we had this whole space dedicated to it. And so I started looking at it, and so I started crunching numbers. And I saw that my 1 foot spinner that sells stickers was making more money a month than the big hosiery room that was, I don't know how many feet of chair and a desk and a computer and all that. And I started crunching numbers, and I said, okay, this is done. We are doing this by appointment. We're going to do it in the other little consulting room that we have. We're getting rid of this hosiery room, and we are blowing this up with merchandise that's going to sell, because this is dead space. And so we took it out.
That's terrific. And I'll tell you what, I'm a numbers guy myself. So I ask a question, and I did in the presentation. I asked this question. I say, what is your best performing department in your front end? And I don't make them tell me, but I just say, now imagine what that is. And I say, I bet there's a number of you here in this room that don't know the answer to that. You go, I don't know. But the ones that do, for the ones that you think you know the answer to that question, I have a follow-up question. How are you defining best performing? Because I didn't define that for you. So how are you defining it? And what I find is that the majority of people define it, they're thinking of it as what's contributing to the most to the bottom line, so their gross margin. And the reason that they do that is because that's the easiest number for them, because most independent pharmacies are not monitoring their inventory levels down to the item level. They're not putting their on-hand quantities in. Having done this for 23 years, having, a couple thousand independent pharmacies on our system, I know that we roughly 20% are really doing inventory control. So 80% of them have no idea what their inventory levels are. And so they only can really go by gross margin. But when you, like and our top performing stores know all of those numbers, and you can then go to something called gross profit return on investment, and you can see the real picture, because that number shows you for every dollar that you've invested in inventory, what's your return on that dollar. So I am going to show 3 slides right now real quickly, and just the first one is the gross margin slide, and it shows these are real numbers from one of our pharmacies, not yours, but one of our pharmacies from about 13 months ago. And when you sort by gross margin, OTC is the number 1 performing department, then HBA, then gifts, and DME, and then seasonal. So that's how they have 5 departments on their front end. When you change that and you add inventory turns to the mix, which is the slide we're going to now. So now seasonal, which was your worst performing department, becomes your number 1 performing department. It's turning 6.4 times a year. DME becomes your number 2 at 5.4 times a year. OTC dropped to number 4 at only 1 times a year. And your gifts, well, dismal. You're not even turning it once a year, 0.9 times a year. So now, what does that say? Well, what it doesn't say is you need to get rid of gifts department, but just says you're way overstocked, right? And because you look at these same reports. Now, but even that isn't the most important number. So I'm going to go to the final slide. And in this case, this is sorted by the gross margin or gross profit return on investment. And so DME actually becomes your best performing department. Now, turns, just backing up, inventory turns in the chain pharmacy market, is the national average is about 3.5 turns for the front end. That's still not, I don't think that's great, but it's certainly better than what that store is performing. Gross profit return on investment for the chains is 2.7. So that means for every dollar they have in inventory, they're getting $2.70 in return over the course of the year. In this example here, the DME was at 4.49. So that's a really good number. The HBA is doing really well. Seasonal's doing fine, but OTC and gifts are really underperforming. And so this is how you make decisions based on numbers. Mm-hmm. And I want to report one thing. This pharmacy, now they run this report for the last 12 months. For the last 12 months, they run that report every month. And then they compare to see if their gross margin return on investment is improving, and they're making those incremental changes. They're drilling down in the department, like the OTC department, for instance. They drilled down and they found exactly what you found. They had too many products, shampoos, that nobody's buying. And by simply taking a different approach, getting rid of the planograms and selecting the items that they do sell, reducing the different options, and raising the prices, they're making a lot more money. And today that store overall 12 months later is reporting an overall store gross margin return on investment of 3.5. And for their gifts, they did a huge sidewalk sale, reduced some pricing, but never even close to below cost. But because they marketed this big sidewalk sale, guess what? People came, they found the store they had never been in. I mean, it's exciting stuff for me. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's very exciting, especially if you look at your numbers. mean, so many times I'll hear one of my staff members, oh yeah, we're selling so much of that stuff. We need to reorder, and I'll say, well, let's run a report. Let's just see. And sometimes they're not right, or they're saying, oh no, that's been sitting on the shelf. We never sell that. I said, let's run a report. The numbers don't lie.
That's exactly right. The numbers don't lie. Yeah. In fact, do you remember the days of Promotions Unlimited?
Oh, you're killing me.
I used to go into pharmacies that use Promotions Unlimited, and I would say, so how does this product do? And so, well, we get tons of it every time. It just sells out like hotcakes. I say, okay, so I'm looking at the sticker. And for those that know Promotions Limited, the sticker could tell you the year and the date that this thing, what promotion it was on. So I would go, well, then why has this product been sitting here for 2 years? Right. The numbers don't lie, but our brains do. When we completely underestimate the amount of time that's gone by. So having this information in your POS system and using those numbers is so, so important. Well, thank you so much, Mona. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Hopefully very informative for everybody. I hope we didn't take too long, and I appreciate, you being on, hanging in there with us for, I think it's been about 45 minutes or so. So do you have any parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
Oh, the biggest thing is really do your numbers. It really helps, and be willing to change. Go out there and cut those shampoos. I only sell 2 shampoos, by the way, 2. And they're not big sellers in my pharmacy, but they're there for convenience. So
Sure.
Do your numbers. It really makes a difference.
Well, thanks again. I really appreciate it. Thank all of you for listening as well. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
The RMS Climb Checkup is the roadmap to maintaining a healthy pharmacy business. Schedule your Climb Checkup with an RMS pharmacy expert today.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. Keep an eye open for the Climb newsletter that'll be coming to you from Karen shortly here. And as always, please share the event, share the videos, share the podcast. Recordings can be found on our website, as well as the Pharmacy Podcast Network.
Yeah, I want to add my thanks as always for you all joining us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Mona. If you have questions for either one of us, just send us an email, and we'll get your questions answered. And I'll be right back with this After Climb is it's a cool feature that can be useful for many of you. It's it's going to take me about 3 minutes to do the session. So it's very, very short, but worth watching. And thanks again, everyone. Welcome to After Climb. This morning I'm going to do a really quick demonstration of a new feature really, in our purchase order program that allows you to do multiple purchase orders at the same time for different vendors, as well as, and for those of you who can buy different items from different vendors, actually run one purchase order or one calculation that then allows you to select the lowest price vendor. So let's just see how this works. So I'm going to go to purchase order. And most of you are used to, at this point, selecting a vendor, but you'll notice right here it says any vendor. So I'm going to go any vendor and just click OK. Now I'm going to go to calculate order like I normally go. I'm going to do new calculation. And in this case, I'm going to go do min max. And I'm going to do pretty much the same thing that I would always do. I'm going to skip phase out items, going to skip inactive items. I don't want to look at items where there's 0 quantity suggested. And in this case, I'm just going to go selected fine lines to speed up the process. You may choose to do that. You may go by department. You may just not do any of those things and just do everything at once. That's up to you. But I'm going to go ahead and click next here. Don't worry about my error message. You won't see that. This is new software, not this part, but I put new software on my system, and I'm just running a bunch of tests. But this isn't going to have any impact for our demo here. So I'm just going to select these because I know I have some items available in those fine lines. It'll run through the calculation. And now I see all the items. I'm going to click next to add them into my purchase order. And here you see that this one is in red. That means that this order can be, this item can be ordered from multiple vendors. And so I'm going to now go to functions, and I'm going to tell it to assign the lowest cost vendor to all items. So it's done that, and as the red goes away, and that's how you'll know. And now we go create POs over here. This is something new you haven't seen. And now you'll see that it's going to create one purchase order for vendor CAR, and it's the Tylenol, and here's the cost. And then there's another vendor called WH, and it's going to create all these other items are going to be sent off to that. And then you go finalize, generate. I'll preview this one. So here's the first order. And it's 2 pages, and then close that one. And here's the second order. Finalize and generate that. And here's the second order. Okay, obviously you're going to have more items and so forth, but just to see how this works. So I think, once again, for those of you who order from multiple vendors, then you could, this really could be helpful. And then also, it doesn't even have to be that, right? So let's say that you you just want to run and see, you have, let's say you have 100 vendors. You want to run and see what orders are going to hit a threshold that would allow you to order and get free shipping. So you can use it for that as well. And that is it for my demo. Hope this is helpful for you, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.